This organizational meeting of the Preston County Council for the year 2025 is on session. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the flag of the Republic of the States, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Felton.
Here.
Is her camera on? Thank you. Castellucci,
Here.
Moranti,
Here.
Nissan,
Here.
Morris. Here. Fernhagen,
You're muted. Gary, you're muted. To new presence. Get okay for one more time. Still muted, Gary. The bottom. You're still muted. Come back to him. Yeah, let it clear down. We'll come back.
Can you unmute him, Logan?
No, I tried. You did. I can only mute him once he mutes himself.
He's
He's gonna come back.
Roberts. Roney,
Here.
Sauer,
Here.
Olo,
Here.
President Pietro.
Here. It looks like Gary's on.
Gary's back on. Gary?
Can you hear me?
Yes. He's got to see you.
I'll get back.
So let's go ahead. 2020. No changes, just one small change. Tender's monthly report will go back to the informal meeting. Financial still exists. They obviously have an agenda that they talked about. But I think it's important that we all better report every month. So other than that, can I have an introduction in a second to approve? Ron, Marvel. Roll call vote.
Roll call, please vote.
Oh,
Please.
all those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. The majority leader has been designated, Father Morris, and the other leader is Father Mooney. With that, I have a motion and a second to return. Ron and Margaret. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, excellent. Okay, now we go to the informal meeting. Copies of draft minutes for December 17th meeting have been placed on the city website. Copies of committee reports have been posted on the city website. Tracy has submitted the record of the annual completion of the training report to the members of the planning board and the zoning board for the year 2024. HPD has submitted its section 9 data reporting and its weekly report findings, as well as its quarterly legal and traffic report. Now we get to reports. Let's hear from you.
Hello. Not quite the lengthy reports as I usually have. December is always a little bit slower at the youth center. We've got the big holiday break, and a lot of staff and students end up with catching whatever bugs going around. And so there's been a lot of kids out sick, staff out sick, so I'm finally healthy, so don't worry, hopefully I'm not hearing anything today. But yeah, we've had a lot of fun in the month of December. We held a holiday party for all of our kids. We had games, food, dancing. Officer Riggs stopped by with started. We even had a snowball fight. We got these little like fabric balls that were snowballs and a giant snowball fight in the gym. It was really, really cute. No pictures because I got roped into also being for the snowball fight, so there's proof somewhere, but I don't have it. We were able to share a toy and a book with each child, thanks to generous donations from the Sheriff's Department and other community organizations. Everybody had a great time, and we're really excited to have the kids back and get into the swing of things again, now that the break is over. And that's just some photos. Up there. Officer Riggs was great, really calm with a lot of young kids, even sat still during the snowball fight and was really commenting that the kids really appreciated having him there. And we're hoping that we can have him stop by a little more frequently. We'll invite Sergeant and meeting them all. Yeah, it's just pretty sweet. That's some of the donations, I guess. For the numbers, the registration for the K-13 stayed at 31. We did have an increase of kids from an daily average of kids from 16 to 18. Registration for our 3rd through 8th went from 61 to 65, 25 kids on average being served daily. And then registration for teen went up 47 from 45 to 47. So other things at the youth center, you can see on the next slide, we had the gym floor refinish. It was last done in 2021 when they redid the whole thing. And this is the type of maintenance that's supposed to happen on a little bit more of a regular basis, but because our gym is not used quite as much as other gyms, we were able to put it off a little bit. Probably need to be done again in another 2 to 3 years, but it looks really good, as you can see in the next slide with the finished floor. Our youth department basketball league has started again. We had over 175 kids sign up for the league this year. That includes our skills and drills and our support. I think it's 8 teams actually that we have for the older kids who do the scrimmaging. Our coaches are made up of volunteers from the community, and our referees are primarily the high school student athletes. We have a couple of our older rec attendants come just to make sure it's staying moving forward well, and then the rest of them are student athletes. We use the gym at MC Smith in the junior high for our practices and our games. And if you have free time on a Saturday and you want to swing by, we're there most Saturdays from 9 to 1. And then just a couple of photos of that. Oakdale Park. So we put up the signs to remind people that you are not allowed to go out on the ice at Oakdale. It's too unstable and unsafe for people to go out. Even if you go out a little bit and you feel like you're safe in the one area because it's holding you, that doesn't mean the whole lake is holding you. It's pretty inconsistent. There's some moving water under there. So just make sure you're staying off. The signs are up, and I just thank everybody for following that rule because it is really unsafe to go out there. And there's nobody around to rescue you. Something terrible could happen. So. And then upcoming information, believe it or not, next month we're going to start registration for summer camp. We'll start by sending that information to the families that were part of the camp last year, giving them a couple weeks first notice, and then we'll send it out as public to our social media and to our other organizations to share with everybody. We'll also be beginning our application process for all of our summer employees, and so that includes counselors in training, lifeguards, bike shop apprentices, and 1 part-time laborer to help at Oakdale Park for the season as well. CITs can be as young as 14 and 15. Lifeguards need to be at least 16 to guard at the lake. And if you have any questions about any of that, you can reach out to us at 518-828-0017 or info@cityofhudson. That works.
Questions from the council? Dominic?
What's the, I heard something about a program for special needs. What's that you are thinking about?
We don't have a program. We have a position that I'm working with civil service. It's more of, someone who's kind of like a liaison one-on-one for the kids that come in with higher needs. That position will work with the school and parents and other support systems to make sure that students' needs are not only being met by them as their support in the program, but also the whole staff is aware of what those needs are and how to support.
So how are you formatting that? I mean, what are you doing for qualifications? What are you doing for training?
Yeah, I'm working with Donna Civil Service. I don't remember off the top of my head. It's not quite as, you don't need like a TA certification or anything like that. It's, I can send you a copy of it when it's ready, but I'm working very closely with Dawn to make sure that we are meeting expectations and not, asking for a role that already exists.
So if someone has like an IEP at school
Mhm.
and that they would like to do an after-school program and attend the youth center, would that staff be that one-on-one for that person if that's needed?
Yes, yeah. We're looking at it, we don't want that to be like the only resource. So like one-on-one, typically when you think about it in a school, that person is just like kind of attached to that student that stays with them all the time. It'd be more of like a one-on-one awareness. So that person would help them in certain situations, but they would also be there to help make sure that their needs are being met by everyone kind of from a.
So it wouldn't follow the IEP because the IEP.
Right, yeah.
So it wouldn't follow an IEP.
Yeah, we haven't had any students that, specifically need that level of care. And if we did, maybe that was where we would go. But right now, it's just more of, many of our students are coming in and they're on the spectrum. They have some type of IEP or some type of plan that's not necessarily a one-on-one, but that needs attention and awareness. And so we're trying to just have someone be able to focus on that so that those needs aren't being forgotten just because they're not in school anymore.
But you have two sites. How does that work with two sites?
Well, we can hire multiple
That's fair.
people in any of our positions. So that position is going to be funded by county money
Okay.
once we have it. So
Mhm. Okay.
if there's one or two, and it's still.
It could be a roamer if needed, wherever needed, or
Yeah.
could be both sites. But keep me because I like to be involved in making sure, that there's contact with the school, whatever you need as a resource.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll keep you posted.
Okay, anybody in the public? Anybody online? Voting?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Liz.
Thank you, everyone.
And now we have the gentleman from the fire department.
We'll be quick. All right, last month we did 36 alarms. 4 of those were fires. One of them was a building fire in Germantown we helped out with. 6 were hazardous conditions. One of those was carbon monoxide, power line down, stuff like that. We had 4 service calls, which were water problems. This time of year, very common. 2 good intents and then 20 false alarms, which ended us for the year with a total of 446 alarms for the year. 28 of those were fires. Other fires, 10 of them were buildings, 2 of them right here in the city. Just for a couple highlights, 31 of those, we had rescue and emergency medical service incidents, 13 motor vehicle accidents, 5 car versus pedestrians, 9 motor vehicle accidents with no injuries. The big thing here is 124, out of 279 false alarms, 124 of them were due to malfunctions. Just, people not keeping up on their systems or getting fixed correctly when we ask them to, but, and then all the other ones that are false alarm usually from smoke from cooking, miscellaneous stuff, so. Well,
Thank you. Any questions from council? Councilman Margaret?
Yeah, the ones that were false alarms due to malfunction, I keep coming back to this because we put in about a year ago or so, rules around that kind of false alarm. So do you have a situation where when you have multiples, there's a fine for that kind of false
We
alarm?
I don't know if the city has anything in the code. I know the county does a program where 3 alarms, you get a fine.
Didn't we do that?
How much is that fine?
I'm not sure what the fine is, but the county does have a program and I think it's adopted through the actual districts and the towns.
But we did something in Hudson around that. We as a city did something.
Fire alarm. We did.
No, we did do something.
Yeah, just this last month, I think Nick was telling me, because you guys do your alarm systems, that were included in that, or, I don't know, it has to be looked at. I just found out about it last month, because when we go to a place multiple times, we just call code enforcement. I don't know if there's anything that I mean, they usually come down there, don't do violations, or they can do their standard law.
I believe the new code includes fire as well.
But I know that we did something about a year ago, I don't know whether it was in this council or the previous one, specific to,
It was past summer.
was about,
Yeah,
yeah,
past summer,
was
yeah.
specific, not to false alarms,
Quote.
as in, you know, there was smoke in the kitchen, but false
No,
alarms.
actual false
No,
alarms, yeah, there's-
malfunction.
So, we talked about the county coordinators, when we go meet them quarterly. They have the stipulations of what classifies as a false alarm or doesn't, you know, I mean, the alarm going off for no reason, malfunction, that's,
Right.
you know, stuff like that. Even steam, believe it or not, steam from a shower is considered false alarm. It's
Right.
not, you know. But like, yeah, smoke from cooking or smoking cigarettes is doing its job, so that's
Right, that's correct.
not really considered. So,
It's not a
yes.
fire, but it's not a malfunction.
That's-
So maybe we need to look at that and see.
Do you have,
Well, it was something we were actually, you know, like I said, I found out through about a month ago. And we were trying to start discussing it, is
do you have good records as to like
where we go,
who
yeah, everything's kept in
repeat
mind.
offenders and
Just about everything we do, and especially now with the new system, new CAD system we're doing now, it's gonna be logged, you know, why, we always log why we cancel the alarm, like smoke from cooking or malfunction, we always log that anyways, radio in.
So if we were to go back and find what we passed, what we did in the council, who would we send it to in the fire department?
So you send it right to our email, you can send it to the chief or the commissioner,
Okay.
yeah, because it's something we're actually gonna start discussing this year, because it's a lot.
Yeah, that is
It's a lot, you know what I mean? And people take advantage of it, they, you know, they just blow it off, or, you know, you got owners that don't live in the city, or
Yeah.
you got tenants that are, you turn it over to, so.
I think didn't we have fines associated with it?
I believe so.
There were fines associated.
Yep, you got that information sent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we-
Actually, I think it's only burglary, I thought it's only deal with the police department, because I signed up for it. So I think it's only burglary and,
There was one for fire alarms, specifically addressed fire
I
alarms.
wonder if we're getting confused about the,
Sorry, go ahead. I'm looking at
yeah.
it. Cameron, do you have a question?
Yeah, so two things. So, when we talk about false alarm, I think you're talking about similar to the burglar system, because I don't think we're talking about actual smoke detectors. We don't want to deter people to tear their smoke detectors down because they're afraid. Right, so we're talking about systems, like my work last week had 2 false alarms in the system, right? So, I think we're talking about systems, right? We're not talking about smoke detectors.
Yes, well, if we do go somewhere and a smoke detector's bad, that goes down as one of the false alarm too, because, yeah,
Sure.
you know, detect one for whatever reason, you know.
Right.
But, yeah, it's mostly systems, they make alarm systems, and that's usually culprits, we go back, that's where we're getting the call from, because usually, a lot of times, people don't even call a smoke detector, and if it's not into alarm for like, until it bothers them. But if it's hooked up to an alarm company, it automatically comes off.
Yes. Secondly, I provided, a couple years ago, pet oxygen mask. So, and with the fire in Clobrick, where the dog, very fortunately was saved, but in that situation, an oxygen mask could have been utilized. Does each truck have those masks that the firefighters know they're there?
Not each truck, right?
No, you just have, there's 2, there's one on our rescue, and I think 30 has one too.
There's only 2? I thought I gave 4, no? Only 2?
I only have 2.
Yeah, we know it.
Well, I'm gonna provide you with more, because I think that what happened in Clobrick, if you guys run into that, and I think the more you have, the more it's aware. I think that was a very, fortunate thing.
They have one out there.
For that, I think Clobrick had it or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely carry it. The only thing is like, we don't carry oxygen on the truck, so, we don't do anything.
Right. So it has to be tied into rescue.
Rescue plan, yeah. We could provide that, we have it, we could provide it for them if they don't have it. So.
Okay.
And I don't know if they carry it, I don't know if they carry them.
No, I'm gonna contact Green Corps Rescue to see, if they do have them, and then you see how we can at least tie it in that you guys have them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Again, it sounds, to me, it sounds, small in one regard, but very, for families in that situation. I know you guys got a lot on your, dealing with fire, but in that situation, it seemed like it was very handy for Clobrick.
Yeah, it's not uncommon, we've come out for dogs and cats in the past, it's not uncommon. Some good outcomes and some not so good, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Tom, I'll follow up and get that piece to the
Oh,
children of what we passed before.
Appreciate it. That's it. Next up is the police. Chief.
Hello, everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy
Happy
New
New
Year.
Year.
So our body worn camera reports for December didn't show anything that indicated any discipline or training needs at this time. Number of use of force incidents was one, in which we were advised that a subject had a gun, and so our officers approached that subject with pointing their weapons, but no harm, nothing came of that. Number of arrests were 16 for 30 total charges. Number of emotionally disturbed persons calls were 12. And number of calls involving a drug overdose was 1, and that happened to be at the warming center on Green Street, unfortunately. No accidents involving pedestrians. I also just wanted to note that we did have our promotional ceremony that I emailed you all about. Hope you had a good vacation, Tom. But it went well, so thank you for all the support and those who were able to show up. And then you also received the quarterly reports. So I just wanted to make note for the quarterly reports that for the months of October through December, 123 tickets were issued, but it doesn't always reflect the enforcement that the officers are doing. So last year in August, we began tracking traffic stops where we weren't issuing citations. So there were an additional 195 traffic stops that were conducted in that quarter. They're just not reflected in that report. So from August to December, there are a total of 307 additional, including the 123. But for that specific quarter, it was an additional 195 traffic stops that were conducted.
And they would have been like warnings or something like that?
Correct. Where an officer pulled over a car for a traffic violation and then just gave them a warning and let them go and didn't issue a ticket.
Are you enforcing the 25-mile-an-hour limit?
We are trying to, yes.
Are you
I think
not-
we are,
How's it going?
I think there are some signage that we are still waiting for certain areas. So it's been difficult to kind of do that in those areas.
Where is the signage?
There was 3rd Street was missing a sign. So
But at every entrance point into the city, there's a 25-mile-an-hour signage.
as of last month on South 3rd Street, there wasn't entering the city.
It's at Power.
It's on Power Ave now.
It's on Power because
Prior to that,
it was
it's
put-
35 and then
it
Power
was,
Ave.
it was put at Power so that anyone who, because if we had put it further down, then people coming in on Power would not have seen the 25-mile-an-hour. But the city limit, 25-mile limit, is actually at Power on 9G.
Okay, then we'll start.
You can
enforcing it down
enforce it there, yes.
Then that was my confusion.
I think we also want to put up, and Tom, I need to look at how much money is left in the budget. We still are waiting for an invoice on the pavement study, but we need to put up those passive signages at Power, for example. And then I know there's one on Worth, but I think if we have one also at Fairview when they're coming in, like at those outer limits, we want to put up a couple
From
of
Union
passive.
Turnpike, from.
Yeah, like there are 3 locations where I think coming into the city, if we were to put up those passive ones, we have one on Worth, but there are a couple of other locations where we could put them up. And I think we have enough money left, but I'm waiting for the invoice from the pavement study.
Great. Any other questions? Anybody online? Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Moving right along. Rob Perry.
How are you doing?
Oh, pretty good.
All righty, share screen. Window. Share. Okay. Septage for November was $47,471. So a couple of years ago, we started the discussion with DEC about what it would take to get rid of these CSOs and how much would it take to separate everything. And we said, well, we have estimates, but not really anything hard to work on. So at that point, we applied for a planning grant, which which was $100,000 from DEC, 20,000 from the city. And we came up with this 10 inches thick manual of what it would take to separate the city. The total project was about $180 million. So in applying for the bill grant last year, EFC said, break it into smaller sections and take a couple more bites at it. So instead of 180, we divided it by 3, and we basically applied for a $60 million grant, which we were awarded. That was $25 million grant and $25 million for 0% for 25 years. What that meant is the city share was going to be about $33 million. Subsequent to that, we applied for a WIA grant, which we were awarded. That was back in summertime, and that was for just over $14 million. And another grant we applied for and were awarded this past December is a water quality improvement for another $10 million. So, the good news is we were able to take what would be a $58 million project and whittle it down so that the local share was actually $11.8 million. So you can do the math. You're getting it for just about 10 cents on the dollar. The issue or the concern or whatever it is, what we can discuss at some point, is that the way that the grants are structured is that EFC takes all non-EFC grant money off the top. So if we remain with the old project of $57 million, then $10 million for water quality improvement, which is from DEC, comes off the top. And we effectively lose a couple $1 million worth of bill money that's, 25 or 50% free and 50% 0%. So the question is, and we also leave some money on the table with one of the WIA projects as well. So the question is, if to maximize it, if we increase the bond from 58 million to basically 66 million, that maximizes the share from WQIP, WIA, and Bill. So you'll see it would increase the project cost by just over $9 million. It would increase the local share by $5.5 million. And that's how we would be able to access the other $3.5 million in grant. So it doesn't need to be a decision today or even this month, but I will forward this to Heather and have some discussions with her, and it ultimately up to the council. The idea is that if we enlarge, the higher the project is now with money that we know we've been awarded, the more construction we can get done, and the smaller the remaining amount of work is. We will be applying for another round of Bill, which is the $50 million grant that we were awarded once. This is the third and final round. So we may get it. I would be surprised because we've already have one, but we do have a lot of work left to do. So the more work we can get done in this round, I think is probably the best way to go. But certainly, we can have a greater in-depth conversation because these are big numbers. Going on with moving to water, it's winter time, so we're doing a lot of inside projects. This is just maintenance on one of the chemical bulk tanks, and there's a slurry that develops in the bottom, and we just wash and rinse it out. Actually, on the picture on the left is a cross section of what that tank looks like. It's polymers and different types of carbon fiber. So I'm just kind of as a cool thing. Last month we did receive, I guess I can switch this guy around now. Or 2 months ago, the town of Taconic abandoned Churchtown Road. So we've been in the process. We did close it temporarily with barricades, and now we're installing some gates on it. We're working with the fire departments to give them access either through the road if they need it on both ends, or obviously if they need to access the house or the chemical feed building that are city owned and on the property. 3, this is just a tapping machine. Things that we purchased, the upgrade. This is when a pipe is under pressure and you need to put a new service or a corp into it. This is the equipment that does that. Going to the big news, water related of the last month, was that the tank was losing some water. So this is just a couple examples It's harder to tell, I guess, in pictures then, but that water has actually got 3 inches. Oh, you can see in the back where the light is, where it's reflecting. There's a couple of inches of water on this basement, and that's the first floor. This is actually somebody's basement. You can see it's a beer can retrieval system with 1.5 feet of water in it. And so this is what it ended up being there were about 14 different houses. Some were under construction. Some were, just closed or condemned, and the water was still charged. And there was an instance where a couple just went away for the holidays and came back, and they turned their heat down before they left, and their pipes had burst. They were on an exterior wall. So a little bit of everything, but in the end, there were also a couple water main breaks. So this was over on, this one's on Glenwood, and it was near a service, so we had to put a tapping sleeve on to provide the resident with a new service. This was on Oakwood. You can see that, a little sleeve over it. So all in all, we've, we are at full storage now. It's at 2.65 million gallons, which is circled. So, I don't know if he's dropped the flow. Yeah, we dropped the flow down to 890 gallons. So we were up around 920 gallons a minute when we were trying to fill it. The DPW stuff. So we've had a couple snow. After the snow, nothing obviously really crazy intense. Afterwards, they clean off all the equipment, stainless steel, plastic, electronic components. We want to get that corrosive salt out of there. This is the back of the salt spreader. You get everything all clean, and we put a neutralizing agent on it to deactivate what other residual might be there. Garbage cans. This is the older style, and there was some money for equipment in last year's budget, so we did purchase some polycarbon ones that hopefully will be more resistant to vandalism. Certainly be easier to maintain. They're not wood; they won't have to be sanded and painted and stained every year and polyed. There was one of the bathrooms at City Hall needed to be repaired. The floor was in tough shape. The toilet was in bad shape. Like I said, just winter duty. This breakdown here is one of the EV chargers in the City Hall lot is broken. I guess they tried to fix it remotely, and maybe they sent a text out. So they want the replacement to come from the city, which is $6,000. But I'm told that based on this sheet that the city's portion over the course of the year is only $1,000. So you can do the math. If that's the case, it would take 6 years of operations before we recoup the cost of the charger. Meanwhile, the company that is still making their money. So we're waiting to see what the resolution is from them.
I might have, Rob.
Yep.
There might be money in the grant that we just got to replace the charger. So I have to see at the end.
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
And the grant that we just got for the EV chargers, that there might be extra, if all goes well.
Yeah.
That they'll be able to replace this charger for the grant that we just.
All right, well, good for you. Good for you. It's Bolo on the game.
So I put an extra, I added the budget. So hopefully if everything goes well, we can replace this charger.
Don't tell anybody.
I know, I should.
Stay for me. Parks related. So, there's the studies going down for the ground and the soils at the waterfront park. This is Rick's Point. I described it last month, and you'd see they just send some borings down, and they take these little coupons out, and no surprise, it's clay, and more clay. But one of the things that did come out as part of this discussion is that there are some deed restrictions and caveats on that property down there. And so we were provided with this letter that they'd sent to the city probably about 3 months before I took on this position. And so I didn't remember it. Anyway, it basically says, the red down the bottom says, prior to any work, grant approval of any activity reasonably anticipated, prevent, blah, blah, blah. We need to get DEC and National Grid to sign off on. So it's it's not uncommon when these projects, these capital projects are underway, that we need review from several state or federal agencies or private entities. And this is just one thing more that we're going to have to consider when we do work at the waterfront park and around that area. That's because it's a closed site, but it's still on monitoring wells. They're still taking samples on it. We do have the RFP for 7th Street Park, should be going out soon. We had construction meetings a couple times last week, and I believe 100% drawings were sent to Parks and Rec, and maybe there was another entity, and once we get that back, we'll be able to put this out on the street. So we don't anticipate they should take too long to review, because they've already reviewed the 80 and 90% plans and had very little comment. The streetscape project, so they've shut down for the winter. What you see here, the cone or the barricades are over where the new streetlights will go. The bump outs are finished, the curbing. The sand that's there is just temporary. That'll be soil and plantings in the spring, but we wouldn't allow them to just leave like a 6-inch or 8-inch hole in between the curb and the sidewalk. So the easiest way was to fill it up with sand, and it can come through the vac truck in the summertime and remove that, and then install the soil and the final products. Pavers going on the multi-use path, which is bike and pedestrian. You can see where it butts up along the extent of the Promenade Hill, and this will continue into the new Warren Street Plaza that'll be constructed in the spring. There'll be a similar plaza constructed at 2nd and Warren, but we are a little bit more than halfway through the project. This is just more, we need electrical work done from the old lights so we can remove these old bases, and we need some handhelds and transformers relocated, because they're going to be in conflict with planting and infrastructure on the new project. And Ferry Street Bridge, basically it's shut down for the winter. The only thing that we hope to accomplish is to get National Grid to install the connections to replace the gas main that was decommissioned as part of this project. And that's on them. And if they don't get it done by the time we're ready to pave, then we're just going to pave it, and they'll have to deal without having a gas main on Water Street from this side. They can directional bore and go into their tracks if they want, I guess. But that's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Councilman, any council members?
One more comment, Rob, sorry. Thanks for those numbers, because also what the finance committee is going to do is we're going to increase the fees for the charges as well, so that the revenue number at least could be greater. So we can increase that by at least almost, 50%.
Okay.
Rob, with your hunt for the broken pipes, how many were in abandoned buildings? Were there any abandoned buildings?
Well, there was a couple. I didn't go to all of them. I was actually out of town when this happened, but a couple of them were condemned, and a couple of them were under construction. They had active building permits, but as long as somebody was working on them but it wasn't heated, and so cold air and pressurized pipes, it's going to blow.
Is there anything we could do in terms of like code for condemned buildings to ensure that the water is either off or winterized or whatever, so prevent something like this happening again?
Well, that's a code enforcement question, not me, but I was told that by code enforcement at one of the buildings that the paperwork that he had showed that the water service was off, and obviously it wasn't.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Rob. The
Yes.
street light, when it's out, who should we call?
Just send me an email with the address and the poll number.
Okay. Jennifer?
This kind of goes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
We did pass a vacancy law, and I just wanted to know if anyone any of those buildings that were vacant, if people have been, if their taxes have increased or been ticketed, or however we're handling it, and who does handle it.
There's a vacancy fee, so it's not the taxes.
Okay,
But,
Code enforcement.
that's a good question. I
I'm
mean,
pretty sure code enforcement.
Yeah.
Code
Yes.
enforcement.
of course, what is, and I guess does code enforcement also send out the fee?
Yeah.
Like anything else?
Yeah,
Yeah,
We have set the fee.
it's not treasurer's office.
no.
Okay, fine.
Code.
Okay,
Thanks.
anybody else? Oh, one more thing, sure. Oh, sorry, Rob, one more thing. The hecatate, issue. I know the CAC talked about doing an environmental review of that. Is that possible?
You'd have to be lead agency. Are you lead agency?
No. Definitely not. So I can't.
I mean, I'm not an attorney. Yeah, you know, you'd have to ask your attorney, but just from my old days back in the planning, chair as a planning board, the person who gets the environmental review is the entity that's lead agency.
Yeah, it's- Okay, thank you, Rob.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get these resolutions done. The first resolution, appointing commissioners to introduction of section. First shot and. The second resolution reappoints David Marshall to the public works. Luana and Tricia. The next resolution accepts donations from Liberty Elks and Orfeo LLC on behalf of the fire department. I have Tricia and Rich. The next authorizes a budget transfer to cover employee paid healthcare and healthcare deductibles. Introduction in a second. Everyone? The next resolution authorizes a budget amendment to cover materials and supplies for vital studies. Which is.
Like birth certificates?
I don't know what this is for. Does anybody have an idea
Sorry,
what this resolution?
I was going to ask, I could not understand.
We can table it. The next is Friends of Hudson Youth Designated Funds, and I have an introduction in a second. Go on. Sure. The next is to cover expenses of the council to become a council. Introduction in a second. Go on, Trisha and. And the last one, authorize the loan from the general fund to the capital fund for a 2024 housing rehabilitation project.
This is the grant that we just
Yes,
got.
correct. Tricia, I'm going. Now, I was gonna bring up and have an executive session about, the addendum to the, sorry. To the lease agreement on Zone Warehouse.
Oh, yeah.
But I think we'll postpone it so we can actually vote on it next time and have our executive session. Please read it. So you know, and maybe even send out some questions if you have any doubts. I
Well,
think-
there were a lot of questions about it last time when we were in
Oh,
our
really?
executive session.
Okay,
And some of the concerns that we had were the extension to 39 years. The rolling back of the beginning of the rental period by 2 or 3 years. There were questions about the insurance.
okay. I don't think we should really discuss it outside of the executive, but that's okay. I mean, if you want to send me all those things, I'd really appreciate it.
Okay, but that was why we felt that we did not have sufficient time
Got it.
or information. Even, the attorney for the city came and explained the various pieces to it, but page one of the changes, we never did get, we still haven't gotten the red line
Okay,
of the changes, which I think we need to get,
definitely.
so we can see what was actually changed, but we have quite a number of issues.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Dominic?
One of the things last week I got a call from the hospital and that they're using, the ER is being inundated for homeless, using it as a warming. And so I think there's a breakdown in terms of the church and the services that we have available. So I contacted the commissioner and, apparently there's some kind of communication breakdown. But what I got that there's no contingency plan if the shelter overflows. I think we need to have a proactive plan, especially during the day, if it overflows, like the firehouse or whatever. I don't think it's a good idea that they're at the hospital, they're vulnerable, it's illness season, and I don't think it's a good idea that they're used to hospitalize for warming. I think we should try to see if we can, like I said, I don't know, if we can use during the day, the firehouse or something. But I think we need to have a plan before it gets hit, and then we don't have a plan. So I think we got to figure out what we can do as a contingency if right now the commissioner said it's not full, but because there's only 8 beds for males, 8 beds for females. So there's 16, but there was a breakdown somewhere. So I think it would be nice if we have some plan in place. So in an event that the way it was last week, as cold as it was, that we have a plan in place for a code blue, for, the city. I don't know how we go about it.
Rich, does the county do anything?
Well, the county does the county has a church that MHA does it, it's 24/7 supposedly. So MHA does it at night, they staff it, and the county pays or contributes to the daytime for the church to staff it during the day. But somehow there was a breakdown last week, or somehow it's been a breakdown that somebody's saying it's not open, it is open, and so there's 4 individuals using the ER waiting room, ER bays as warming centers. And the hospital doesn't want to turn them away, but it's not a good idea that they're there. One, it's taking up space for, like with that REL, and also it's giving them susceptible that it's a high incident rate of RSV. There's a lot of illness going on in the hospital right now. So it's not a good idea to put vulnerable individuals in that setting. But that's why I think we need to have a plan that somebody can call the city somewhere, say, it's open, right? Or somehow say, we need help. Can you open it?
Well, what about our county supervisors? What did they say?
I don't know.
It's a county service, correct?
What is?
The church situation is run by the county.
It's run by DSS, right? Well, DSS is the one I spoke to.
Right, but it's a county unit, it's not city.
Yeah, it's a
So
county.
therefore it should go to the supervisors.
Yeah, but it's a city issue if they're in the city, right? I mean, if they're, I think, HPD is going to be taxed with it. I think they've had some calls last week with the same individuals.
So who
So
is telling them that it's not open?
who's what?
You're saying that there was a breakdown and people were told it wasn't open. Who is telling them it's not open?
The homeless individuals are saying it's not open. The hospital's saying, they're saying it's not open, but the county's saying it is open.
That they have the number to call and find out it's open or not or something.
I was told that it's open. I was told by the commissioner that it is open. And he was going to call the hospital and he was,
But if the hospital had a number to call
Yeah, that's what
at
I'm
the
saying.
church that could confirm it is indeed open.
I think that's, I recommended to the county that they send a staff over there with the information for the ERs, basically the ER, to the ER, to educate them on what's right down the street for systems. But meanwhile, my thing is, we need to have a plan. I mean, it's gonna come down to us, I think, in the city, because we're gonna be dealing with it. The county's not gonna deal with it in not 11 o'clock at night. It's gonna be HPD, it's gonna be someone else dealing with it. Or during the day, the county's not gonna deal with the issue.
I think Dominic, I think there are two separate issues. One of which is the hospital is getting people showing up saying it's not open. And as Dawn is saying,
Right.
what the solution there is, it wasn't full. The solution there is the hospital needs to have some point of contact at the church that they can confirm, yes, you are indeed open and you do have space. So they can redirect these people over to the church. That's the first problem. The second problem that I think you're bringing up is in the event that it is full, can we have something in place, particularly during the day, as either at the, I think you had suggested the senior center in the library or the fire department, so that in the event that the church is full, the church needs to have information to say, okay, if we're full, we're going to redirect people to this location. I think that's what we need. Right?
Yeah. I'll follow up tomorrow with the commissioner to see the status, to see if they did connect with the hospital. Because I think that's, you're right. The best thing is that they need to communicate to each other and have that contact for the church to, to make sure there's available beds.
Okay, Heather would like to contribute something. Heather?
Hi, yeah, I'm sorry. The audio's a little challenging, so I might have misheard, but I think there was a question about that vital statistics resolution.
Yeah.
So basically, if you don't mind me explaining, so basically what happened was in the request for the vital statistics department, there was a line item for other expense. It is a valid expense. They get it every year. They do have charges against it. When I put the budget together, it was on a different sheet in the spreadsheet and I missed it and we didn't catch it through the budget process. So it was a valid requested expense that we missed putting into the 2025 budget. And this is just rectifying that.
Okay. Thank you, Heather.
So you tabled it, which we need to.
We can do it right now.
Yeah.
Who would like to support? Margaret and Dawn. Okay.
Can I go back to the Don warehouse on that procedural question?
Procedural, not content.
Not content. So, at what point and what can we discuss publicly with regard to the changes to the lease agreement? What can, like, shouldn't the public be aware of what?
It's a tough call. I know, I agree that they should be, but I've been called out for, in another instance, for doing that. And is Crystal there?
Yes.
She just raised her hand.
I just raised my hand actually, so I could jump in if I could.
That's you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So typically while you're still working on negotiations with the other side, that's why you're doing that in executive session, so that if there's any questions that come up with those negotiations that you don't necessarily want to share with the other side, you might want to share just the ultimate outcome, then that's why you're talking about them outside of the public forum. So that's where lease negotiations and contract negotiations can be handled in executive session. This is one where there was some back and forth with the other side in developing this addendum to the lease, which is why it was recommended that these conversations happen in executive session. And then whatever the outcome is in the final lease would obviously be open to public disclosure.
So, Crystal, what we are looking at to discuss or vote on next week is a final document, is that correct?
Yes.
So we can discuss and raise questions about the content of that final document in public, correct?
The final, so I would say there's some caveats to it. If you're going to be requesting changes to that document, to the contractor, that's where you'd want to be discussing all of that in executive session. The reason for those changes, the changes that are being requested, all that conversation should be happening in executive session. And then the final outcome of it, and whatever that final lease agreement is, all of that would be discussed in the public meeting when you're voting on that final lease agreement.
Right, but if we have a lease agreement where there are issues, so we have issues with some aspect of the lease agreement, can we not discuss that in public? Because we are not, the council is not directly involved in these negotiations. They appear to be occurring between the mayor's office and the lease firm,
So
the leasing.
you can, all right, so the council can always have these conversations in public if it so chooses. It's just recommended that if there are questions on some of those issues, that happen in executive session so that we can have those conversations without worry, completely open and frank, without worrying how that would affect negotiation strategies.
Okay, so the comment I'm making, Crystal, is that we are not involved in the negotiation. We're being handed a document to vote on. So if we were indeed part of the negotiation, I would agree with you. Yes, we're in negotiation with the people who are going to lease Dunn Warehouse, and we're trying to come to an agreement. I get all of that, but we're actually being asked to approve something that we are not part of the negotiation. So I don't see why we should not be able to discuss our concerns about what is being presented to us.
You can.
I would say the thought on that is that the council ultimately can give direction to go back to change to their attorneys to go back to offer different provisions. And that's where those conversations may want to happen in executive session. That's all.
Okay.
Because the council's still directing the attorneys to speak on its behalf to be able to change it, to be able to change the lease.
Right, but the attorney that was dealing with this is the city attorney, and it was the mayor's office and Dunn Warehouse that were engaged in negotiation, not
The mayor, Heather, and the.
Oh, okay. So the council was involved. Okay, well, we weren't.
Yeah. Well, that would be, a lot of people in the room.
Sorry?
That'd be a lot of people in the room.
No, I understand that, but
Yeah.
the first thing we saw was here's the
Right.
thing you have to vote on.
Right.
And we were not part of any discussion. We weren't given any information other than 30-minute
Actually,
briefing by the lawyer.
My fault for not being here.
No, it's not your fault, your own.
Okay,
Make a motion to adjourn.
two motions. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
No. Do I need to sign anything?
No, I need